I could see, let's say, having a special, vote or whatever. There's a lot that could initiate a vote, vote.
All right. Anybody book? Um, yeah, like what pace that? Glad you guys came out. Um,
But
what?
my wife wasn't too happy about it.
Right. So we'll just an hour out of. We'll do this quick. We'll finish up this chapter.
Very important. Non.
Just want to mention, I put out on the emails, I don't know if you saw it, but Sudat Mashiach at our house. Love to have everybody, even for just to come by 5 minutes. It's a trek, it's a little bit of a walk. But there is Mincha through Nat Yerushalayim at 5:30 then. I don't want to take people away from the Rambam, but then maybe come out. The Rambam, I think, is later, much later, 6:30. So, and I don't know, whatever. If you can make it, it would be tremendous for men and women. And would love to have everybody come. 56 at Tzvi. We'll put it out a couple of more times. Anyway, yeah. On in the book, what page are we on? Can I see the book? We're about to finish the chapter, The Soul of Man, and we in the newer book we are on page 46 on the bottom. We just have a little bit to go here. Last time we finished off talking about what the soul gives to the body and what it gets from the body. And just to summarize that, um, listen, a large part, this is something we didn't talk about a lot, but it's going to come up over and over again, especially in the Tanya. But the Tanya is based on this concept. The Zohar and the Kabbalah and the mystical writings and the spiritual framework of the world, the DNA of the world. It's divided. Last time we talked about the differences between how the halachic world divides the world or sees the world, and how the Kabbalistic uh, perception or perspective of the world is. There's another point that the Kabbalah and especially Hasidut, especially the Tanya, like I said, is dealing with. And that is the difference, I guess, between the essence of something and then the essence of something and then the garments of that same thing. Okay. So what is this chapter called? This chapter is called The Soul of Man. But it's important to us because this last paragraph has something to emphasize. And that is that there is the objective reality of what that entity is. Let's say the soul. Okay. And then there is how it's able to express itself and how it's able to reveal itself. And those are what the Kabbalah talks about, the garments of the soul. Okay. And the only way the soul can interact with this world is through its garments. Believe it or not, basically almost everything in our world is a mixture, or is a interplay constantly between what the essence is and what the garment is. Okay. And sometimes it's very hard and very difficult to discern between the two. It's so interrelated, it's all so interactive. So I'll just give an example just to flesh out what we just studied last week. And this is based especially on the Tanya, but it's more than that. It's when we're talking about the world and we're talking about the Sphirot and we're talking about, the soul, what he's talking about here a lot is the pristine, non-distorted, objective reality of what are these entities? What are these things? The best when we talked about angels, they have no distortion whatsoever. Okay. But in our lives, it's only the only thing that we see or encounter is a distorted, we rarely encounter the thing itself, okay, in its pristine, non-distorted state, okay? So therefore, I may ask. So, like, let's say, for instance, he was talking about the garment, or he talked about the rider and the rider of the horse and the what do you say, rider on a horseback, rider on horseback, right? Guiding it. And it would be more like saying like the horse is the way, one of the garments of the rider, or one of the ways it gets expressed, or one of the ways it gets from one place to another. Now, a rider wouldn't be a rider without the horse, and that's why he's called a rider. But there is an entity of the rider that's not connected to the horse. Okay. And so what we see is and what we encounter is the rider on horseback. Our soul expressing itself, like he was talking about in the last paragraph, expressing itself through the garments of our bodies, our lives here. The question begs, the question that automatically comes up is, so, and it's a question in general about everything we're discussing here from the beginning. And this is what people, at least I asked, is, so what do I need to know about the soul in its pristine state? For instance, or why do I need to know about the worlds if the only interaction I have is through a distorted or non-direct interaction with that thing itself? Why do I even need to know about that reality? You do. That the fact that a lot of people go through life and don't know about it doesn't mean they don't need to know it. Okay. Need meaning that it is part, you are lacking, you would be lacking in, let's say, your avoda, to put it in those words, your worship and your service, or in your purpose in life. You're lacking if you don't know. It's exactly like asking the question, why can't I do mitzvot without intention, without kavana? Not talking about the mitzvot that necessitate kavana in order to fulfill the mitzvah. We're coming up to matzah, eating matzah in 2 nights, right? The Gemara has already from the Mishnah talks about what if you eat it? Are you yotze? If you just swallow it, if you don't have kavana, all these different things. So kavana, and the levels of kavana here, but over there it seems that there is some type of kavana that you need in order to fulfill the mitzvah. But there are mitzvot that you don't need to have kavana in order just to do that mitzvah. Okay, you just do it, right? Classic example, I would say, is tzedakah. So much so is that the Gemara talks about even if a coin falls out of a person's pocket and somebody picks it up, you're a yotze. Very weird. You're a yotze. You gave tzedakah, right? What does that mean? And obviously there are levels of tzedakah that the Rambam brings, but there are levels. But bottom line, if you give a penny or an agura or 10 agura, whatever it is, it's tzedakah without any intention whatsoever. So it's the same thing as asking about need. Why do you need kavana in those mitzvot? And the answer is because there's something lacking in even in the performance and even in the way you're performing it if you don't have it. And especially when we're dealing with life. When we're dealing with life, the more you know, the more you can interact with it. But again comes the question then, well, why do I need to know about something that I am not going to interact with? So the answer is that there are practical implications. Okay, first of all, like I said, when you know, you can have more, I guess, kavanot. Now I'm talking about the mystical, already, way of using that word. Different types of like thoughts and intentions and stuff like that. But even more so, I would say, is that let's talk about, I just want to go off on a tangent over here, talk about the soul. I'm trying to be very short here. That let's talk about the soul, knowing the soul, what we're talking about over here. There are very practical, and we talked about this a little bit, about once you know what the objective reality of your soul is, regardless if you interact with it or not, then you can at least know that, for instance, this is just a small example, not small, it's big, but it's one of a detail in the whole structure which we're creating here. Then you know that when you are working on yourself, you are working towards who you truly are, even though you're never going to get there. You understand? It's very much, I said this before, it's very much based on the pasuk, Ki karov elecha hadavar, very close to you. Meaning when we are, and he's going to talk about this in the last part over here in the chapter, when we are talking about gaining or getting to some kind of improvement and perfection in your life, it's not something external, it's something internal. When we talk about dveikut, for instance, we're not talking about clinging to something that's beyond you, but rather you're working towards yourself, who you are. And once you know more, even intellectually, like we're trying to do here, what the soul is made up of, and who is that soul, and where does it exist, even though we don't interact with that thing, okay? We are working towards that pristine, perfect reality, which exists inside of ourselves, even though we don't interact with it. It's like almost saying, this is the ideal, this is what you're working for. It's almost like, this is a terrible example, emotional, but I like the muscle. It's like the reason why we all appreciate whichever field you're talking about. We appreciate watching people who are so pristine in their field, even though you know you're never going to get it. Let's say, for instance, why do I enjoy and appreciate watching videos of Michael Jordan playing basketball? I'm never going to be Michael Jordan. But there's such a thing as, at least I know there's something like that. So when I'm playing basketball, I can almost kind of emulate something that exists. And I know that it exists somewhere. Not a great mashal, but not a great analogy, but it's close to it. What he was saying in the previous paragraph is he was describing the interaction and the play and the inherent interaction that the soul itself has with the body. And always, that's our reality. And our reality is this, that the soul obviously affects, gives vitality on the most basic level to this physical body, right? The human soul, the Jewish soul, just like there's a soul in the rock that gives its spiritual vitality to this physical being, this physical entity, this physical thing. But vice versa, it does get affected by this horse that it's riding. Okay.
I think gravitation. About the moment that, what exactly was that?
Perfect. When the soul, exactly. That's what we talked about, that the difference on the gurney, the difference between the dead body and the right. That's the most basic level, which we talked about nefesh. Okay. So let's go on now. He's going to talk about, therefore, the practical implication of this play and what we're working towards. So I'm starting to read now. The path of tikkun, the course plotted for the soul's sojourn in the world, is generally found in the Torah, which is supposed to be a guiding instrument. For the Torah is not only a higher revelation, it is a practical guide to direct man on the way, showing him what to do and how to do it in his task of repairing the world. Within this general course or task of raising the level of the universe, each and every soul has to find its own particular way, its own place, and the specific objects relating to its existence. Connecting it to what you were saying before in the previous chapter, in the previous paragraph, what he was saying is that, there's this interplay, but there's an interplay for a purpose. And the purpose is to affect the world. Okay, the soul comes here to affect the world that we live in. And the guide, and that is through its garments, through its horse, so to speak, which is the physical. I wouldn't even say physical, I would say this world, Olama Asiya. It's also the spiritual aspects and the physical aspects. And it expresses itself through these things. And the Torah is a map through which to, to put things into the correct place. Now there's a general map. There's a general map, right? Chuka achat, right? One rule and one law for everybody. If you don't do this, you do. Rabbi Steinsaltz is adding this idea of because every soul is distinct and every soul is unique, therefore its potential of affecting the world is also going to be unique within that general map of the Torah. So one must find in the Torah where the person's avoda is also specific. Okay? No, that's not his chiddush. He's just connecting it. It's obvious. The Gemara also asks which rabbi, I can't remember which rabbi, B'mai have zahir tfei. And what were you more, well, the question is, what does zahir mean? Zahir, the pshat, the simple meaning of that is, and then he said, what did he say? One of them said tzitzis. One of them said, I can't remember the different opinions. What were you more careful about? There's some that explain Zahir from Zohar. What were you more illuminated? What animated you? Yeah? Yes.
One would say, both have a certain point.
Right. Obviously, yes. Oh, you're going in that direction. You're going in what talks to you, it speaks to you, in what you're expressing. No.
Yeah.
Right. And we could have a long discussion about how is it that Elu Ve'elu, and how, I mean, we have a prayer that are printed in some of the beginnings of the Gemaras, when you go to that tefillah that you're supposed to say before you get to the Beit Medrash, right? Of like, please make me a vessel, so to speak, through which I don't say about something that's tamei tahar and tahar tamei, which is impure, and something that is asur, right? And also, there's another Gemara, I think in Brachot, that talks about that. How do you know? Aliba deshmatata. What is that? Agada? I can't remember. It was Yehuda. That was a prayer that he should say. He should say things according to halacha. Now, obviously, how do you get to that? How do you get to that? Ironically, you get to that. The most important thing is by self-nullification. They take away your ego. But you're really just trying to express truth. But here again is the irony of the way to truly express yourself is if you're nullifying yourself, which is not really yourself, it's your ego, allowing your soul to shine through. Put in nice, pretty words. Okay? So that's what he's saying over here. Therefore, it has been said, and I'm continuing reading, that each of the letters of the Torah has some corresponding soul. That is to say, every soul is a letter in the entire Torah and has its own part to play. It's a nice connection over there. The soul that has fulfilled its task, that has done what it has to do in terms of creating or repairing its own part of the world and realizing its own essence, back to what I was saying, its true essence, right, can wait after death for the perfection as a whole. We're sitting there waiting for everybody else to do their job. Right. Did I say that? The perfection of the world as a whole. I'm sorry. I was reading, I was getting excited about the next sentence. But not all the souls are so privileged. No kidding. Many stray for one reason or another. Sometimes a person does not do all the proper things, and sometimes he misuses force and spoils his portion and the portion of others. In such cases, the soul does not complete its task, and may even itself be damaged by contact with the world. Again, the soul being affected by the world. Why do I keep emphasizing this? It's just important. I'm saying something in parentheses. This is the distinction between created beings and God. This is the definition of God. The definition of God is that it's not affected. God is not affected by anything. We're going to say it in the Haggadah. When we say Hamakom, Baruch Hamakom, Hu Makomo Shalolam, Ve'eno Ha'olam Makomo. That's what's coming from the term Makom. That's what we're expressing in God. That definition is he's not affected at all. Our souls are. wanted to say that our souls are affected. We were talking about the rider on the horseback, our souls are.
We need it's Hashem to move from to say impact on our actual.
So you're saying we can't, so what is, you're asking in general, what is tefillah? Or what is any good deed or anything? Isn't it, are we affecting God? Aren't we affecting God? That's a very, very good question. Right, but why would he change? Let's say, why would he change from keeping it from if we got the deed? I mean, if he doesn't feel change. So that's kind of yes, yes, and. First of all, in the same parak, if I remember correctly, in the same prakim over there, chapters of the Rambam talking about this, he also talks about that how God reveals himself or expresses himself. And the danger of Avodah Zarah is that you latch onto one thing, you think this is God. God is also Chesed, also Rachamim, also Din. One time he appears as a Ish Milchama, one time he appears as this, and don't make a mistake, it's all the same God. That's only how he's appearing. How he's appearing is how he decides that he dictates to himself the laws and rules of the world. So tefillah and changing is part of the system that he created, and he decided that he's going to abide by those laws, by those rules. So, but here we go again. Here we go again. This is why Kabbalah is important. That's important to know. There's a difference, again, between the essence of God and how he chooses to appear and express himself. Again, we're going to the differences between, again, I'll use these terms, essence and the garments that he chooses to wear. The garments that he chooses to wear, we can affect because he decided that we can affect him. The essence that the Rambam is talking about over there does not get affected by anything. The essence. That part is Ani Hashem lo shani. I don't change. Kachashecha ka'ora. For me, it didn't, right? What we say in what Eov says, in tzadakta, if you were so righteous, ma pa'alta lo, what did you do to him? What activated with him? You could be in a certain sense, and it's a scary sense. In a certain sense, he couldn't care less. It doesn't make a difference to him. In fact, my son, I'm not going to go. I have to restrain myself, but my son, the part that he said, the mimer, the discourse, he said the famous bar mitzvah mimer. We actually learned about is talking exactly about this because it's all about tefillin. It's all based on a medrash Tehillim that says that the Jewish people complained to God and said, we can't learn Torah day and night all 24 hours, but we can't. So what should we do? And he said, put on tefillin, and it's as if you're learning Torah day and night. That's what it doesn't. And he goes into a great, great discourse. And one of the things he says is that one of the points that he says is that he's basically trying to say how learning Torah is equal to doing the same thing that tefillin does, okay, in a certain sense. Okay, but one of the main points of this mimer is talking about that when we do mitzvot, we force him to do mitzvot. Okay, we force him to do mitzvot. And he asked basically the question, how is that so? How do you force God? What are you changing God? He says God can create the world and keep on creating the world from a state, he says, a state of sleep, unconscious. It's almost like he's with him, he's in himself up there. And it's like he's creating a world that is like almost like a dream. It's not that relevant to him. And when we do mitzvot, is we kind of awaken him and make him more involved with the world. Make him look and pay attention to the world. That's what happens when we do mitzvot. And that's the Zohar says that mitzvah melashon tzavta, like tzevet, connection, a team. You know, we are, so to speak, quotation marks, forcing him to interact with the world. And he goes on and says, how does Tefillin do that? How does Torah do that? But that he's creating exactly that. So at his essence, he could be left alone and not really care about what's going on in the world. That is not great. We want him to be involved in the world. In fact, we have this mashal, and I'm going on different things, but we have this mashal with Rashi. Rashi brings, that's not Rashi's Chiddush. He says, what's the difference? And it's perfect for the Haggadah, for Seder, for the Pesach. What Rashi says, when the Torah compares the land of Egypt to the land of Israel, what does the Torah say? Lo ke'eretz Mitzrayim hi, right? And the bottom line, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but Rashi says is that here in Israel, we're dependent upon rain. In Mitzrayim, they're dependent on the Nile. And so therefore, you depend on the Nile, you're not so interacting with God. You get it every year, it just floods in a certain time, a certain season, it floods all the side canals and stuff like that, and irrigates the fields. Here, everyone, a lot of times, is looking at the level of the Kinneret, right? We need to know. We're dependent because he wants dependency. Here, in this case, it's a situation where God wants to be involved with the world, is involved with the world. But we also want him to be involved with the world. We want him to be involved with the world. And that's why we do these mitzvot and like almost force him to wear the garments. We force him to wear the garments because his essence doesn't have to. All this was in parentheses to say that's not so with the soul. Like he says over here, the soul may even be damaged by contact with the world.
So you're saying there is an aspect of attribution to Hashem garments.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not only creature, it's not only mankind will have garments in this world.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly.
His manifestation in this world.
Yes. Our garment. Yes.
We see, feel.
Yes. He's putting on clothes.
He made
Yes.
plumbing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hot water, cold water, we bang on the pipes.
Right. Exactly.
So to add to the analogy, I trained as a reflexologist. Almost side things that I've done. Reflexology is based on sonometopy, where you can map the body to the foot or the hand, etc. By applying acupressure.
Yes.
I'm not by pressing here, I'm not fixing your kidney. By pressing here, I can tell your brain, which is always looking at the entire body all the 24/7. By applying acupressure, I can get the brain to say, oh, the kidney's calling me. And if I press a few times, the kidney called 3 times, the brain says, I should go look at the kidney. So in essence.
But what was it doing till then? What was wrong, in quotation marks, that it wasn't paying attention to the kidney?
Oh, it was. It's paying attention to everything.
I know,
but you pay attention to everything.
Right, but what are you doing when you're making a call?
So when by applying acupressure, basically I'm telling the brain,
Pay more attention.
the kidney needs your attention right now.
But the brain
Okay.
does know that.
No, but the brain doesn't always know that. Like in a city, a city's responsible for everything that happens in the city, right?
Right.
Amongst the million different things the city.
There are neighborhoods.
They have to take care of the roads.
Right.
Okay. Now, if there's a big pothole on Rodger,
Exactly.
the city knows about it immediately because people from the city work on,
Right.
travel on Rodger. If there's a pothole on Mishol Arava,
Right.
no one will know,
Right.
even though it's their responsibility. And
Right.
officially, they're checking everything.
But in a perfect
But
world,
if Jeff Green calls the city.
Right.
And says, hey, there's a pothole in
Right.
Arava, and Jeff Green calls back 4 times this week, the city's gonna say, hey, there's something going on Mishol Arava.
but in a
And
perfect
so
world,
too,
Right.
with reflexology,
Right.
if I know someone has a problem, if I discover a problem doing it, then by acupressure, I can get the brain to, hey,
Pay
you need to
attention.
focus over here.
in a conscious
And
way.
so in a more
Right.
conscious way.
Exactly.
But again, I'm not directing the brain. Jeff
Exactly.
Green can't tell a brain what to do, and yet by doing this, I see empirical results.
The Tanya goes
So-
even further.
So if we're saying the same thing with prayer, moving Hashem from me, you know, I didn't change a person's brain
Right,
when I pressed here on his foot.
right,
And so too, when I put on tefillin, I'm not changing Hashem,
exactly.
but by putting it on 4 times, 5 times, 7 times this week,
It's a call.
6 times this week, all of a sudden, Jeff Green has pressed the tefillin button in the pipeline of buttons there.
Right.
So that is getting him woken up in that sense.
The Tanya goes even further
Yeah.
and harsher than that. He says that the true leaders, especially of the Jewish people, should be Einei Ha'edah, the eyes of the congregation. And they should be and Rosh Ha'edah. And just like a Rosh,
Mhm.
in a perfect system where it's really working and healthy, it should be that the head should know what's going in the pothole of Mishol HaRava.
Mhm.
When it doesn't, there's something wrong. There's a distortion of the pipeline of Mishol HaRava reporting to the head and make it aware. And therefore, there's something wrong here. There's a distortion, there's a blockage. Okay? So much so, the reason why I say he's harsh is because he says, don't tell this to people outside of here, when it's being recorded, he says, any leader that doesn't is proof that he's not really a leader.
Mhm.
If a leader is not feeling everybody, right, and aware, Rabbi Shalos brings in that portion of the time, he brings a story, I can't remember which Hasidic Rebbe, he says that he couldn't sleep at night if he was in a radius of a Jewish woman giving birth. He was distressed. It's so interesting because this is so practical. It's so practical because I'm going to say personally, and other people have told me, what is one of my frustrations with my American Jewish brethren right now? That they don't feel. Somebody told me they're still going on Pesach vacations,
Mhm.
Pesach programs.
Mhm.
Don't they get it? It's like, how could you even do that? This is a sign of a distortion. This is a sign of a blockage. This is a sign of something not working correctly. You shouldn't be an American, be able to just run your life, live your life. It's not in America. We have communities here. Okay, whatever. This is something that needs to be fixed. And that's what he's talking about over here. Part of it. So let's go back to the soul that has not fulfilled its role. It has not managed to complete that portion of reality, which only this particular soul can complete. And therefore, after the death of the soul, the soul returns and is reincarnated in the body of another person, and again must try and complete what it failed to correct or what it injured in the past. Reincarnation, whole other conversation. But I do want to connect this to one part that we didn't understand. I don't know if you remember, 3 weeks ago, it was a part that we really had difficulty understanding when he talked about the soul of man as like one long line that goes into different bodies. He didn't say different bodies at the time, but I think it's connected to it. One long line that is like, I can't remember the terminology that I used there, but if you remember, it was something that I had difficulty, but now it makes sense a little bit. That the soul is not just your soul that goes into your body. Now, wait a second. The soul that you have in your body is unique. This type of combination of what gets revealed and that is never going to happen again. Because we could talk about reincarnation. Reincarnation is that this essence of the soul takes upon itself different garments. And sometimes, does he say it over here? I can't remember if he says it over here. Sometimes it's not just one soul, it's a combination of different souls that go into different bodies and stuff like that. The bottom line, it's whatever you have that needs to create a tikkun of the world, hasn't done it yet, it's going to have to come back. The sins of man are not eliminated so long as the soul does not complete that which it has to complete. From which it may be seen that most souls are not new. They are not in the world for the first time. Almost every person bears the legacy of previous existences. I'm sure you've heard of people who say, I feel, okay. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know how much that's imagination or not. What? Deja vu, some people say.
Deja vu.
Generally, one does not obtain the previous. Oh, here he does say it. Okay. One does not obtain the previous self again, for the soul manifests. This is what I was trying to say. I knew he said it somewhere. I just didn't realize it was here. For the soul manifests itself in different circumstances and in different situations. What is more, some souls are compounded of more than one single form or person and share parts of a number of persons. Okay, so that's a whole discussion of reincarnation, which is interesting. A great soul is most usually reincarnated not in one single body, but branches out, participating in a number of people, each of whom have to satisfy different aspects of existence. By the way, this is explicit Gemara. What Gemara am I talking about?
The
When it
600,000 souls.
That's one Gemara. I was thinking about something correct. 6,000 souls, and it's all branching out, stuff like that. But one of the most practical things is when Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Ma Hashem Moshe." What is God just asking him? Yokim liyara, to fear God. And the Gemara asks, "Is fear yira milta zutratahi? Is fear a small little thing?" And the Gemara answers, "Yes, for Moshe Rabbeinu it was a small thing," and that's where it ends. But everybody asks. That didn't answer the question. Because Moshe is talking to us. I'm glad it's a small thing for Moshe, but that doesn't answer the question. And one of the answers is that because there's a little bit of Moshe in each and every one of us. And for that part of Moshe in each and every one of us, Yira, fear, is a small thing. Again, again. We keep on going back to essence versus garments. What you have inside of yourself versus what gets expressed. It's always going to be this play over here. But you should know, you need to know in order to be able to function correctly in the best possible way, you need to know, the Gemara wants you to know, that you have a small Moshe in you that doesn't consider Yira or fear or awe of God as a big thing, as insurmountable, to say the least. Okay. In spite of this incalculable complexity, the soul will be made up of the same constituent elements and will have to complete those uncompleted tasks left over from the previous cycle. Therefore, the destiny of a person is connected not only with those things he himself creates or does, great, as if that's not enough, thanks a lot, but also with what happens to the soul in its previous incarnations. But again, we're going back to what are you made up of? What is your essence made up of? Sometimes a person is befuddled and baffled and dazed and confused about what type of hardships he or she encounters. And one of the answers is because you're not just correcting something that you did. Okay? At least you know what you're, again, need, want. If you need to know this so that you are able to function in the world in a better way. Therefore, the destiny, okay. The encounters and events of life, its joys and sorrows, are influenced by one's previous existence. One's existence is a continuity, which we talked about before, the sustaining of a certain fundamental essence, and certain elements may rise to the surface which do not seem to belong to the present. Which a person has to complete or fix or correct, and you go crazy. I added that, go crazy. A portion of the world that is his task to put right in order for him to raise his soul to its proper level. And this struggle of the souls is also the struggle and way of the world towards its redemption. As the souls return and strive to correct the world and vindicate themselves, at a certain level of this overall tikkun or correction, they reach their highest peak. Not just going back, but it's rather creating and going back to your pristine, perfect essence within this world, which that's the chiddush. That's the unique novelty. Okay, because where it came from, it was pristine. Neshama shenatata bi tahorai. We say it every morning, right? It comes from like a very person. What fixing does it need? It does, in a certain sense. If fixing is that it can affect the world in a way that it can get to a higher place than even where it was. Then the greatest obstacles. But
then you've got that implies that the soul is the driving force of the person's actions.
How so? First of all, how so?
If the soul is here to create a tikkun that it wasn't able to achieve in its previous, instances,
right?
And now it really wants to get it done, and it's got Jeff Green's body
Right.
for this round.
Yes.
Jeff Green's body's doing all sorts of things that it doesn't want it to do.
Right.
So, but this implies that
Yes.
that the soul is driving Jeff more than Jeff's driving the soul.
Yes.
Jeff's the horse.
Yes.
The soul's the rider.
Absolutely. 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 But not only that, it's what the cert it sometimes in order a lot of times, I would say even most times, in order to rectify a certain situation, those are going to be your challenges. In order to truly rectify something, that's what's going to be the hardest to do. So your challenges in life, seemingly external circumstances that are your challenges, is because God's putting them in front of you because the soul needs to work. So it's not just the soul itself, but also the circumstances of the soul is the driving force of where you're up to in your life.
Mhm.
Then the greatest obstacles are behind the human race, and it can go forward towards perfection with sure steps and without the legacy of suffering inherited from previous existence and previous sins. This is the beginning of salvation, which is the time of the Mashiach. Right? It, it's almost like up to when everybody thinks, the Alter Rebbe used to say, he says, the Mashiach that everybody wants is not going to come. And the Mashiach that nobody imagined, that's the one that's coming. The thing is that many people have this imagination that Mashiach is going to come and solve all our problems. Pay off my debts. Now, it's very clear what the Rambam says what Mashiach is going to come and do. Okay, there's not going to be any more jealousy. There's not going to be wars. People are going to, but that doesn't mean the work is done. It's just a different type of work. Up till Mashiach, we're playing catch up in a certain sense and refinement in order to get a higher place. When we get to the higher place, in a certain sense, that's when the real work starts. Because now we're not playing catch up. Now we're building something. We don't have to deal with the previous distractions and distortions that we had before. And that's what we're aiming for. We want to get rid of the, so to speak, the extra, the superfluous distractions and distortions, so we could get the job done. In this manner, man proceeds until that stage is reached when all the souls return, each to its own self. When every self in the world will enter into new life in complete fusion with the higher force of the soul on all levels and of the body, manifesting all the potential powers it contains in the body. There is a disagreement between the Rambam and the Ramban of what is the ultimate ideal. Just going to put it out there. The Rambam claims that the ultimate goal is what we call Olam Haba, which is going to come for everybody, but that's spiritual, us being on a spiritual state, intellectual spiritual state, he claims, right? Knowledge of God, pristine knowledge of God, right? But not in bodies. The Ramban says, no, the ultimate goal is Tchiyat HaMetim, when we're souls back in the bodies. And if you look in the Machloket, it seems that most of the Kabbalists and most of the Mefarshim, most of the rabbis, at the end agreed with the Ramban, that is the ultimate goal. Because that's what we're saying here. Again, the soul, the rider on the horseback, okay? Dafka, particularly in this world, in this physical world, is where it happens and where it can happen, okay? Just we need to get rid of the distractions and the things that are bothering us. This level of the perfection of all humanity, in which a new relation will exist between body and soul, and the world will be whole with itself. I love he keeps on going back to itself, is right, is called heaven or the next world, according to the Ramban. It is the goal toward which all souls of men, in discharging their private and specific tasks in life, aspire and strive. That is the ultimate goal. And that is somehow, maybe you could explain at the Seder table to your families or your guests when it says that Lehavili Mota Mashiach. No, Olam Hazeh and Olam Hab. What does it say in the Seder? Kol Yamecha, right? Kol Yamecha Yamim Veleilot, and he says no, yeah, Olam Hazeh Olam Haba. You just asked the question. What does this mean? What does this mean? You can have a whole go the whole night talking about it. Don't get stuck on it too much. But this is the ultimate goal. I think we're going to stop here for tonight because everybody has to get back to Pesach. Yeah.
It's universal. This is all mankind.
All mankind. Correct. A new fusion, I love how he says, a new relation will exist between body and soul.
And how does this relate to the idea that we want to bring the world back to the way it was in Gan Eden before the Chet?
We're going back to its essence,
Right.
but it's to a higher level. It's to a higher level. You have to remember, the original Gan Eden did not have this truly physical existence. Adam and Eve before the Chet Eitz Hadat. They were on a more spiritual existence, even though they're in physical bodies, but they didn't understand what nakedness was. They weren't connected to their physical existence the way we are. And the ultimate goal is to be connected to our physical existence, but learning how to fuse both. That is the ultimate goal. So we are going to a Gan Eden, but even on a higher level than what Adam and Eve were. And that's only through working through all these things and rectifying and finding our true self. And that can only happen in this world and what we've been doing for thousands of years. And God willing, hopefully we are done. Okay, Chag Sameach. See you guys, and thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Pesach.
חג שמח, תודה.
Pesach, did you get the notice about the Sudat Mashiach?
Yeah, and we're gonna
Please
try
come.
to come.
Please
Yeah,
come.
we want to.
Okay, great.
We're looking forward.
Excellent.
חג שמח,
Excellent.
תודה.